Hi there, I'm Gerrid Smith, CEO of Fortress and an 18-year local SEO veteran, here to help you better understand the estate planning attorney niche from an SEO perspective, so that if you are an estate planning or a probate attorney, so that you better understand ultimately how to compete and how to win in your market. So for today, I have pulled up the Tampa market. The Tampa market is just north of me. I live in Florida. And so I was ultimately a little bit curious what was going on in Tampa, and figured we would just take a look together today. So as a starting point, always like to look at the map listings first, the Google Business Profile listings. And there's a couple really interesting things. So when I saw this just a couple minutes ago, when I pulled this up, I was really excited to share this with you, because there's some interesting insights here that I think will be helpful for a lot of estate planning attorneys. So first and foremost, I like to look at the overall rating and the number of reviews by, my competitors. I kind of like to look at niches like this as if I was not in the top 3, I was not in the top 10, maybe I'm top 15, top 20 or so, and I need to move up. So that's kind of the perspective that I like to approach this stuff from. Okay, so we've got David Toback, and we've got a couple other attorneys here that are ranking. So the first thing I noticed, obviously from a review standpoint, is that these guys, Talaro, are doing very, very well, right? You've got 289 reviews, 5 stars. Like, that's phenomenal. Obviously, they're putting a great emphasis on collecting reviews. And I always like to tell business owners, like, this is one of the most important things that you need to do. Every review is worth, especially in the legal niche, it's worth thousands of dollars to your business, because these guys are going to have this, literally for the rest of their business career. So you're building, this is part of the asset that you're building, is your Google reviews. So put a lot of emphasis on it. Obviously, these guys are doing a phenomenal job. They're going to have an edge in the top 3, even though they're third, because they have more reviews and because they have a better rating than the number 1, number 2 spots. So that's awesome. Great job there. The second thing I noticed is that these guys have both Tampa and probate, basically their top keyword, Tampa probate lawyer, in their name. My guess is they actually changed their business name to include those keywords, which was something I was recommending clients, over a decade ago, who were in very, very competitive markets. Obviously, you don't have to do that for every market, but if you are in a very competitive market, or if you just want to give yourself a competitive edge, adding your keyword or a keyword to your business name, which is the only way to really allow this to stick these days, can be very advantageous. Okay, and then at the top, we have a guy that is not ranking, that doesn't have, the reviews that number 2 and number 3 have, but he's ranked number 1. And we actually see him here in the number 1 spot. So when the maps first came out, 12, 13, 14 years ago in Google, they were very heavily tied together. What I mean by that is you could not rank in the maps unless you were ranking fairly well organically, like a first page result. And we've seen that it's not as much the case these days as it was before, but they are still connected for sure. And if you rank number 1 organically, it does give you a significant advantage in the maps. And so we see that with David here, where he ranks number 1 organically, and boom, he's got a great ranking in the maps. So he's got to still do all the basics for sure in order to rank in the maps. But I have a strong feeling here that his number 1 ranking organically is definitely helping his map results. So if you were one of these guys and you're like, hey, maybe we're getting consistent reviews, we're posting consistently to the GBP profile, we're doing all the things we know to do. And again, I haven't dug too deep into this niche, but my guess is if they were to improve their organic rankings, they could ultimately knock, David out of the number 1 spot. So next thing I like to do is I just kind of like to peruse the organic results, just see if there's anything super interesting going on. I do have clients that regularly email me and they're like, hey, should we be advertising in, fill in the blank directory? Justia, Super Lawyers Find Law. There's lots of them these days. And ultimately, the question I always have for them is where do they rank organically? And if they're not top 3 for your main keyword, then no, I wouldn't recommend it. And if they are, just know you're going to get rotated through a bunch of attorneys on that particular page. You know, many of these directories have 5, 6, 7 featured attorneys. So you don't get a lot of visibility. But if they are ranked like number 1, or in this case, number 2 in your niche, you know, it is worth looking at for sure. So, you know, especially if you're David, number 1, and then if somebody's like, oh, let's just see who else, you know, I should be considering. And if you land there and he's also the featured pick on that Justia page, that really gives him such a significant advantage. So that's where it can be ultra powerful, is if you already rank well and you're using a directory as kind of this, you know, second vote of confidence for a consumer. Okay, so here's the number 3 guy in the maps. You can see a lot of directory listings here. Okay, so again, let's kind of take a step back and look at one of my favorite reports called the SERP Analyzer from Surfer. And what this is going to do is this is going to show me kind of how competitive this industry, this market is in Tampa from a content perspective and a little bit from a linking perspective. While this is opening up, let's go ahead and open up a couple. Let's open up a couple other pages. And I'm going to throw all of these into my batch analysis from Ahrefs. Whoops. That didn't quite work the way I thought it would. And then let's go ahead and add in this guy too. And we're going to take a look at each one of these websites. And I'm going to give you some feedback, both from an SEO perspective and from a conversion perspective. Okay, because it's not just about SEO. All right, well, this is still loading. We're going to actually start with links. It's not just about SEO. It's also about conversions. You can have the number 1 ranked website and not be the number 1 business because people are not able to understand either what you do or what makes you unique and special in your market. And so I like to look at things from a very holistic standpoint so that my, you know, customers can be as successful as possible. Okay, so when I do a batch analysis in a particular niche, again, I'm looking at this from the perspective that I don't currently rank well, and I need to figure out kind of what I need to do in order to compete. There's 2 factors I like to look at in this particular report. The first of which is the domain rating. And this shows me kind of the overall strength of the website. Okay. And for the estate planning / probate niche, you know, a 28 is a really, really good domain rating. My guess is these guys have been around for a long time. This is the business, again, that had the most reviews. More than likely, they've been aggressively pursuing their digital presence and making it stronger for maybe 15, 20 years. Again, I don't know for sure. I don't have the background on these guys, but for the level of domain rating that they have and the number of reviews that they have, this is a really impressive domain rating for this particular niche. So that's really good. And this, again, this shows the overall authority of the site from a linking perspective or a link building perspective. And that looks at the number and the quality of sites that link to this site. And as you can see right here, they only have, when I say only, I mean 115 links is pretty good, but they only have, I'm sorry, right, this one, the total referring domains, 179 referring domains. That's 179 unique websites that link to their website, which is good. It's nothing to sneeze at. But you can see that these guys have more websites linking to them, but a lower domain rating, which in theory means that this tool believes these guys are building better quality links. Now, obviously, this is just a tool. This is just their perspective. This isn't Google's perspective, but it's a good little, you know, guesstimate here. And so if I were going to be starting out trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to win? I would start by looking at the links, and I would just open this right here in a new window. And I would start looking at the links that these guys have and try to figure out if I could get as many of them as possible. Now, what I will say is that, local directories are a huge source of these links. In a local directory, we call them citations in kind of the local SEO world. And that just goes, that just tells you how many directories and find law, super pages, et cetera, fit into that. But then you have more of the general directories like yellow pages, super pages, Yelp, et cetera. Those are all citations and they're all local directories. And there's literally, hundreds of them. So it's not hard to get a lot of links, but it is hard to get 179 total links and walk away with a DR of 28. So that's why I would really dig into the specific links that he has, see where he's maybe advertising. Sometimes if you see a higher DR like that, maybe he's got a sponsored banner or a sponsored something going on. Could be like local nonprofits are a great source of high DR links. And what I mean by that is if you do a search for like local museums or just do a search for Tampa nonprofit. If I were in Tampa, this is what I would do, and just see if there's any nonprofits that are linking to their sponsor websites. And for maybe a couple $100, you can get a DR 50 or a DR 60 link, sometimes for life, but at least for a year. And that can pass a lot of link juice over to you. Okay, so that can be a great source of links. But this tells me, hey, this is actually a reasonably competitive niche. This is a little bit more competitive than I would have guessed right off the top of my head for a market like Tampa. Now, Tampa is competitive. There are a lot of people seeking estate planning and probate attorneys there. But this is reasonable. And basically what you have with David, who is in the #1 spot, my guess is as we dig into the Surfer audit, which is still struggling to load, maybe he's got phenomenal on page. I think one of two things are taking place here. Either he has phenomenal on page and the other two guys do not, or he's got a couple really, really good links that these guys don't have, or he's maybe been in business for 20 years and he has kind of the aging factor that is benefiting him. So unfortunately, I'm going to go back and try this again here. And it looks like Surfer, maybe the tool itself is just having some difficulties here today. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so, see, this is exactly, and again, I haven't looked at this yet, but this was one of the factors that I was thinking could be the case here. So you have David here, who's doing a really nice job with his content, which means when we take a look at his content here in a minute, his on-page scores are really, really good from an SEO standpoint. And in case you're not super familiar, SEO is basically at its most basic foundational level comprised of on-page factors, which are all the things that you do on your website, and then off-page factors, which is primarily link building and getting other websites to link to you. So we saw it from a domain score. This is on a scale from 1 to 10. This looks at kind of the number and the quality of websites that link to him. He's at a 1. Now, I don't really like to look at Surfer from the domain score perspective because we just looked at Ahrefs, which I feel like is a much better tool for analyzing the quality and number of links this site has. But anyway, he's in the first category, which is not a big deal. But here's the thing I really want to point out is he's got a better on-page score. And so that tells me in this particular market that if I could come in with some quality links and a quality website, and if I had a better on-page score than him, I could, in theory, do better than he's doing right now. And a 68 is good. You can see it's in the green, but a 68 isn't like exceptional or anything, right? And it's not super hard to get these scores into the high 70s or the 80s. And so that would be our target, is probably like an 85 if we were trying to compete in this market. So that's a great general rule of thumb. And then of course, Justy is going to have a super high domain score. But these other attorneys here, interestingly enough, so you got Elaine here who's ranking well with what would appear to be her bio, this is not common. And based on the strength of this page, you can see it's ranking well, even though this is a bio page, which in most of the time are not really optimized. You can see it's only a 36, which tells me if we were to go in, you can see the keyword's not even here. So you got the keyword here. This is your title tag, the keyword here, and then no keyword, then kind of a keyword. It's like a half keyword. But if Elaine could go in and, add Tampa Estate Planning Attorney, which you can see is probably her main area of practice here. If she changed Meet the Attorney to Tampa Estate Planning Attorney and then added that keyword, maybe let's say 2 times on the page, this score would bump up to probably a 60. And because she's ranking so well with a poorly optimized page, she would probably jump into the number 1 position. So it's a little diamond in the rough there in terms of opportunity for those guys. And then you can see these guys, this is another firm that we were kind of taking a look at, lower score. Again, would really like to see that in the high 70s or mid 80s. Because again, this just tells me there's a lot of opportunity here. And maybe nobody has a greater opportunity than these guys, estatelawflorida.com, with a score of 3. That means, that basically means there's not much going on their homepage. It may just be like a giant image or something. There's no keywords that are telling Google what the page is about. But that, that's such a huge opportunity for these guys, considering they're ranking on the first page of Google, 8th position with such a low score. That just tells me their Ahref score is likely pretty good, even though, again, it's showing a 1 here. They may be in the 20s or maybe even 30s. And if they could improve that a good bit, they would see a nice bump. Okay. One of the things I like to highlight real quickly, because I don't like to take too long, is the Google Page Speed Insights tool. This is a phenomenal tool. Everybody needs to run their site through this. It's really a challenge these days. Obviously, Google's making things harder and harder for the average, webmaster, the average business to compete. But this is still something you've got to keep an eye on because this helps your SEO and it helps your conversions. Obviously, if you've got a lot of mobile users, which everybody does these days, and your site is slow, those mobile users are going to just click back to Google and go to somebody else. So you've got to make sure your mobile score and desktop scores are good. I'm not fully convinced that he's failed his mobile scores just because I'm not getting the full data from the INP and the FID ratings here. I do see that it's a little bit slow here on the CLS score, but he could be passing. If you have a site, you run it through here, it's not scoring all that well. The number 1 tool I can recommend is a tool called NitroPack, and you can go to nitropack.io. And these guys, I like to use their particular tool on pretty much every client we have that's like a monthly regular client because they optimize the code in such a way that it's super, super easy to get, these Core Web Vital scores up like significantly. In fact, I would say on average, the performance is going to be in the 80s, 90s, I would say on the worst case scenario. But it's not hard to get greens like all the way across the board on these different categories. So that would be a recommendation if you are testing your own site, which I would recommend you do with Page Speed Insights. Just recognize that the more complicated, complex your site is, the harder it is to get successful scores. All right. For the last part of this audit, I want to take a look at these 3 sites and just give some feedback based on kind of a conversion, a usability perspective. There's a couple things that I really like to make sure I see right off the bat above the fold before I scroll, and that is a friendly picture. People do business with people that look friendly, right? And then I also want to make sure it's obvious what they do and what makes them special. So I want to look for things like estate planning, or probate, depending on what their primary niche is. And then I also want to see something that's a little bit of a secret sauce, like something that tells me that they're special, they're unique, and that I should ultimately reach out to them. If it was just, boom, Tampa, estate planning attorneys, which sometimes you have to do because the webmaster makes this area the H1, which is like the most important header on the page. That's what you have to put your keywords in there. but more than likely their webmaster did not do that. This could be the H1. We can analyze this. I'm not going to dig in. It's not worth it. But anyway, you want to make sure it's obvious right up front what you do and what makes you special. Is it the number of years? Is it some personalized service? Obviously, the business owners is the one who should come up with that. But see, this is really great. Here's the thing, though. I don't like, and I've got a very large screen here. I don't know, 24 inches or so. Maybe I think it's actually like 27 inches. But I could not see that below. So this is below the fold. I really would like to see this hero area condensed a little bit, because this is some gold, right? This is what makes him special. This is what makes him unique. Experience estate and civil litigation counsel. I would suggest he throw a probate in there, because I think that's the more common keyword than just estate litigation. But anyway, I'm not here to judge his SEO side, but I think that would make it a little bit more clear. And if this part was above the fold, I think he'd get a little bit of a better bump in conversions. All right, let's take a look at the next one here real quick. So the next one, here's what I really like about this guy. I love videos. So you have the friendly face and you have it in video form, which I think if you can pull that off and, you can provide a professional looking video, I highly, highly recommend videos. It just allows the consumer to get to know you, to build a relationship with you. It's part of why I create these videos. It's part of why I have my, video camera down here at the bottom, so you can see what I look like. I'm a real person. Live for today, plan for tomorrow. Not overly compelling to me. That isn't going to wow, I really need to contact these guys because they're super special. This, however, is Florida's highest rated elder law and estate planning attorney. That's what I would put up here. That would be the first thing I would want my consumers or prospects to see. I'm the highest rated elder law and estate planning attorney. Amazing. Put that up there. Put this down here. Live for today, plan for tomorrow, if that's something that's really important to you. I don't know. I'm not really big into these little cliche terms that, I just don't think it adds a lot. I don't think it certainly doesn't tell me what he does, right? And it doesn't tell me what makes him unique. So for me, that doesn't add enough benefit to say, yes, let's do that. This is interesting, BBB. Now, who trusts the BBB? Generally, older consumers, people that are 60, 70 plus, right? So I think that's a really, really smart move on this guy's part to include the BBB. Now, if he was a business litigation attorney, BBB may not have that much weight. If the average business owner that's maybe 40, 50 is contacting them, the BBB doesn't hold as much weight. But with an older demographic, absolutely, this is gold. 200 Google reviews, that's smart too. But again, man, I would highly recommend putting this up here. This is just a phenomenal statement. And if he could include more badges that kind of back that up, because just the 200 reviews and just the BBB A+, I don't know if that's enough for the average consumer to be like, yeah, you're totally the highest rated. I'm sure he's got an AV rating from Martindale Hubbell. I'm sure he's got some other awards or things that he can include here that I think would really be benefit, again, above the fold. But see how condensed this is? I really like that. I wish the other guy had a little bit more of a condensed hero area, because I don't think it's necessary to have some massive, massive hero. You can just add a lot more information here above the fold if you condense this hero area a little bit. Okay. Last one, another very, very significant large hero area. Again, I'd love to see that reduced a little bit. So you've got a number of different headings here. These sliders, they're not as common today as they were 5-10 years ago. As a general rule, I'm not as much of a fan of them as I was in the past. There's a place to use these, but it's just a little bit tricky. Over 20 years, if an older person's starting to read that, it just changed. that was your unique selling proposition. That was your unique selling point. And I don't know. But just over 20 years of experience, I don't know if that's enough, because there's two things. One, he's not telling people right up front that he's an estate planning attorney. And the 20 years experience, my guess is most of these guys have 20 years experience. So you want to have a little something more. I think this guy with the highest rated statement, that's super strong. 200 Google reviews, I would make that a little bit bigger. Again, his demographic that he's targeting is a little bit older. And so this is a little bit hard to read. You can see that text that pops up in that gray box, that is called alt text. And you want to add your keyword in there if you can, which he can here. And I would just say, 200 plus Google reviews for local Tampa, estate planning attorney. Something like that. That way you get a little boost in your on-page score. But I really like this compared to just saying 20 years of legal experience. People can be around for a long time, not necessarily be the best. So I would love, to see somebody like David, dig a little bit deeper and figure out, okay, what really makes us special and unique, and how do we present that in a way that builds trust? So I hope that you enjoyed this video. It is a little bit longer than some of my other videos, but I wanted to make sure we dug deeper than usual into some of these other topics. So thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe so that other people can find this video helpful too. Thanks so much.